I'm really honored to interview Lord Richard Layard, a legend. He's been a pioneer in these studies, and he's been concerned since 1980 with the policy implications that empirical research on happiness can have. His commitment has also been expressed outside of research. He was appointed a member of the House of the Lords in the UK Parliament, and is still a member of the Economic Affairs Committee. A driving force behind the Action for Happiness movement. So, Lord Layard, thank you very much for your availability to this interview. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be with you. So today there was something very, critical happening at the beginning of the WHASO, that is, we all sign off this manifesto. Maybe you want to help us out and explain, to the larger audience, what is this manifesto about?
This is a manifesto which says that the goal for our society should be the maximum well-being that we could have in the population, and that if that's the goal for the society, it's got to be the goal for each of us as individuals. That's what we're trying to contribute to in the way we live and work. But it's also got to be the goal for every organization, a business organization. Its justification is it's contributing to the well-being of the population. Government, why should that exist other than to contribute to the well-being of the population? And we see this as so different from the prevailing culture, where what people are told is your aim in life should be to advance your own position relative to other people's. Better grades, better income, better jobs, competition compared with other people. And you can see there's a very simple fallacy there, because for everybody who wins, there has to be a loser. So however hard we all try to win, we can't all become happier. There's something fundamentally wrong with the philosophy underlying our modern culture. And you can see the results of this in the wonderful Gallup World Poll, which has been surveying people, asking this question: did you experience a lot of stress yesterday? That number has doubled over the last 20 years or so. This is an extraordinary reflection on our society. We are undertaking all this stress for some purpose, which is not making us happier. And we have to rethink the purpose. The difficulty in this debate is how to get into the debate, because it is so prevalent, the idea, growth is everything, everybody has got to work harder and harder, and make sacrifices of things that they actually care more about for the sake of this efficiency growth goal. And it's a false god. But it's so strongly embedded in the culture that it is very difficult for those of us who believe that we should have this wide, holistic view of human well-being. We can't even get into the debate. It's not there. So our idea in having this Como Wellbeing Manifesto is to have a document which we can push into the debate. If you think, how did communists get into the debate? They issued the Communist Manifesto. So that's why we're having the Como Wellbeing Manifesto.
Well, let's hope that we're more successful than used to be, but thank you for this, is really honor. So I think you're alluding to the concept that we need to change this zero-sum concept that somebody is winning and somebody else is losing. That doesn't need to be that way. So there are a lot of things that has to be changed. Maybe you want to tell us one thing that you will be really passionate to change, maybe in companies. What do you think will be the number one element that has to be changed?
Well, I think this overall philosophy that the justification of the company is not just to enrich the shareholders, it's to contribute to the well-being of course, the shareholders, but also everyone else involved. So that's the customers, very important, the workers, very important, and the suppliers, also important. So it's a much wider view of the purpose of the company, which I was really excited. I think it was 2019 when the US Business Roundtable adopted this point of view, that the company exists and should be responsible for forwarding the well-being of all the stakeholders and not just the shareholders. So that's a very important idea. Then the question is, how do you make this happen? So first, if you treasure it, measure it. So things that companies can measure very easily is the well-being of their workers. They can, if possible, do the customers too, but they can certainly do the workers. So we're very, very keen on that in this manifesto. Then how to improve the well-being of the workers, obviously to give them more of a share in the decision-making at the team level, for example. Wonderful trials done at MIT and elsewhere of facilitating team meetings where team members say what they think would be the best way of organizing the work in such a way that, of course, it was productive, but it also made sense to the workforce themselves. Big increase in job satisfaction, quitting down by a third. So these are really important points, that if the well-being of the workers is increased, the productivity doesn't have to go down, it goes up. I think that's the fundamental lesson for business on this point.
That's wonderful. And what I like about your theories are very practical, right? So they need to reach, and I appreciate your concept that as an academic you felt the necessity to go down to the mainstream and provocate, a movement, So, can I ask you a challenging question? So what you can practically do to help the movement? So what are the things that you can practically embrace to make a change?
Well, first we want this manifesto to be used by everybody on your network and on the network of everybody who's at this conference, and then the ripple effect to their networks and so on, to try and challenge anybody who's discussing what is the purpose of anything, the purpose of the company, the purpose of the school, the purpose of the Department of Business in government or whatever. What is their purpose? To insinuate this thought that actually isn't the purpose to produce the most well-being you can, subject to whatever the constraints are. So for government, which I'm very interested in, we are really pushing that the aim of the government should be, as was said by the great Enlightenment thinkers, including Beccaria, that the aim of the government and of the legal system should be to maximize the population well-being. And therefore, when you're thinking about public expenditure, you actually evaluate policies in terms of their measured quantitative impact on well-being per euro of expenditure. And this is the approach which, if our Labour Party becomes elected in Britain, is going to be adopted in the coming years as one of the criteria, alongside the GDP. So the idea that we measure it and we then really think analytically, how can we improve it? Talking about measurement, many people don't believe that well-being can be measured, but we have very good measurements, in fact. The one that is used most is overall, how satisfied are you with your life these days? 0, extremely dissatisfied, 10, extremely satisfied. This has been used for 70 years. It works extremely well. This is actually one of the best predictors of whether you will be alive in 9 years' time. So it obviously conveys a lot of interesting information.
Definitely. So I know you are very passionate about 2 movements that you are participating.
Yes.
Okay, maybe you wanna share with us what are these 2 movements?
So 10 years ago, we founded something called Action for Happiness, which is a worldwide movement. Grassroots, people transforming their lives according to the principles of how can I create as much happiness in my life as possible for others, and of course for myself, to an extent for myself through helping others. This is the positive sum game, which is the opposite of the zero-sum game. And we now have about 300,000 members who we support in living in this more constructive way, both online and through face-to-face meetings of mutual support and inspiration. The other movement is the top-down movement, which we just launched last year, because we were so frustrated with not getting into the debate. And this is called the World Wellbeing Movement. It was originally developed jointly with SNAM in Italy, and it's got a secretariat in Oxford, and it is going to be bombarding companies. It has about a dozen member companies, and we hope that membership will expand. It supports those companies in promoting well-being, but it also has those companies supporting it in its mission to spread its message throughout the business world, and also the public sector world and the world of politics and the media. So that's the World Wellbeing Movement, which is a top-down movement, but also very important, of course, is the educational world. And we won't have this well-being revolution without an army of people like we've got here. Actually, we've got a marvellous army of about 700 or more people in this theatre, astonishing people, really interesting, who are educated in the principles of how to promote both personal well-being and the well-being of society. But we need tens or hundreds of thousands of them, educated typically through universities or other higher institutions. But currently, those courses that exist on well-being, which is a small number, are very different. There's no conception of a unified curriculum. But of course we have to have it to create a new subject, which it is, like other subjects have been created in the past. Galileo created one. Then there are other subjects that have been created century by century. We now have the science of well-being, and we have tried to develop an integrated presentation of it in this textbook, Well-being, Science and Policy, by myself and Jan Emanuel de Navy, and we really hope this will help to create this army of people who can carry this really crucial message, which I do believe can lead to a happier world and happier lives.
Very good, Lord Layard. Thank you very much for your presence. It's an honor.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you very much.